Richard Hart went live on YouTube a few days ago, and as usual, he gave some updates about the PulseChain launch, and he actually clarified something that many people within the community speculated on, including me. And even though I shared my opinion on the topic in this video, clearly pointing out why do I think like that, you can go and check it out if you want. Now it seems like the debate is no more on the table, as Richard Hart just answered what many people were asking in this last update. So essentially, since the mid-May PulseChain launch prediction didn't realize, the crypto market saw a few sell-off events, and it basically confirmed the bear market for those that still didn't call it a bear market, and it sent the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index to historical levels. Bitcoin literally dropped around 10k in 1 week, crushing through the last cycle's all-time high, which it never did before, and more surprisingly, it didn't find any support at this level. There haven't been any relief rallies yet, and in the last 3 months, we've been on a systematic downtrend, which is pretty brutal. Considering all this and the constantly raising inflation, which will force all markets to continue the downtrend, many people within Richard Hart's community actually don't want any more PulseChain to launch ASAP, simply because the situation right now is pretty rough and the project might not see the previous expected initial success. People started to speculate that Richard Hart is waiting for the Bitcoin bottom to launch PulseChain, as it said many times that the project is basically done. And even though he never actually said that, more and more people from the community agreed with the idea to wait for the bottom, and that's how the rumor was born that this is exactly what Richard Hart is waiting for. Well, in his last live stream, he said a few things about that. Let's see that real quick.
But software takes time, you know? My devs were like, hey, mid-May is our best guess from when we can launch. And then some of my other devs looked and they're like, nope, you got to fix this, 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 and this. And so, you know, we're just gonna, it'll launch when it's ready. It's not ready yet.
So he basically said that he's just waiting for the devs to solve the issues, as the delay has nothing to do with the current market conditions. By what he's saying makes me think that he can't wait to launch it once it's ready, and that would be as soon as possible, and he's not gonna wait for the market to bottom or that kind of stuff. I know many people are actually not gonna like this, but for me this is exactly what I wanted to hear, because in my opinion the further the delay it goes, the worse. You know, a general rule is that timing the market is not something you would wanna go for, as no one can time it perfectly. Richard Hart called the top of Bitcoin that was back in April last year, but he couldn't say what is going to happen next because no one can predict the market. We saw around 50% pullback in the summer, but then we had a second leg up that led us to a new all-time high of 69k. Then we had another pullback, and no one could say back then where exactly we are heading, as many people believed that we will go to 100k first before we actually go into the bear market. I could definitely see how we were going to do that, but the inflation and everything else that is happening around the world just didn't allow us to go there. Instead, we went straight down, and trying to call the bottom now could be a dangerous game, as the macro hasn't been this bad in the previous cycles, so assuming history as an indication might not be very relevant. In fact, Richard Hart said many times that the bottom will be 11k, and in the live stream he said that he thinks like that because this is what the price would be after an 85% dip. We saw around 85% dips in the last 2 cycles, and this is pretty much where these numbers come from. But if the macro hasn't been this bad before, can we assume that the dip might be even worse? Let's see what he thinks about that.
If they keep raising rates, stock market will keep going down, Bitcoin will keep going down. And then you get worse than 85% drop. 85% drops are back when money was always cheap. Now money's getting more expensive. So when you have market cycle bubble combined with increasing inflation or increasing interest rates, it means the prices of basically all assets are going to come down as long as they keep raising these rates. You could see a drop deeper than 85% in Bitcoin, because you're also combining that with 140,000 Mt. Gox coins, combining that with 70,000 seized coins from the Bitfinex hack, combining that with all these guys that took out loans. Loans equal leverage. Leverage means you get liquidated and amplify volatility to the downside. You're forced to sell. So with the 85% dips, look, these other 85% dips are just normal market cycle stuff.
So 11k might be a reasonable prediction, but things might get much worse than expected. And he's basically trying to say that sub 10k might be on the table. So as I said, I'm actually happy that he's not waiting for the bottom to launch, because the market is so unpredictable right now, and more people start to lower their previous predictions as we go further into the bear market. To be perfectly really honest, I expect the market to continue going down and see lower prices, maybe until the end of the year, but I also won't be surprised if 17.6k was the bottom, as usually when everybody is calling for higher prices in a bull market, everybody is calling for lower prices in a bear market. However, the chances to go lower from here are pretty decent, and I personally assume that this is where we are heading. Just bear in mind that markets usually don't see a V-shaped recovery, so even if we find the bottom, let's say December this year, we are probably gonna trade sideways for a year or so, and you're gonna have plenty of time to accumulate your favorite coins. In terms of PulseChain, launching after the bottom doesn't make sense to me, because you don't find out where is the bottom until we actually don't go lower than where we've been, and that usually takes a while. For instance, in 2018, many people thought that 6k is the bottom, and they were accumulating as much as they can, assuming they are buying at the best possible prices and we are going up very soon. However, in 2 weeks, Bitcoin dropped another 45%, going from 6,300 all the way down to 3,500. Surprisingly, this was still not the bottom, and the next week was green, going 25% up, but that was just a scam pump before we go even lower, so it dropped another 30% from this point, where it marked its actual bottom at around 3k. But even if we measure from the all-time high, the correction that Bitcoin made was around 85%. But do you think people back then were convinced that this is the bottom? They might have been guessing that this is the bottom, just like they've been guessing 6k is the bottom, but no one could say for sure that this is it, we found the bottom, now we can start trading higher. One of the most unpredictable things is to call where the market is going in the short term. You can say that in 2 or 3 years we are going to be trading much higher, but in the short term the market can go literally either way, and during this period, after this major drop, the market has been on a downtrend for so long that many people think this will never end. They are still in fear that another leg down is around the corner, and in the next 4 months the market was going sideways. So until we saw a move like this one, where we easily went back up to 6k and beyond, we couldn't say that 3k was the bottom. We identify the bottom when we actually don't go lower than the lowest low, so the PulseChain's performance won't be any different if we launch before or after the bottom. There is still gonna be a lot of fear in the market, and no one is going to be certain that the bottom is already in. It's gonna take some time, and what PulseChain was going to do if we launch around this period, I think it will do the same if we launch around here. So any delay because of the bad market conditions doesn't make sense to me, neither waiting for a bull market, as the bull market could be 1 year away and this is just too much time. I hope we won't see any bugs and issues on the mainnet, and that's why we are waiting 1 year already. But if there are gonna be any, it's good to be found and fixed as soon as possible. I don't know what you think, but in my opinion, Richard Hart is on the right direction to launch as soon as everything is done, if I read his words correctly. If that's the case, I highly recommend you to get ready for the snapshot by moving all your ERC20 tokens to your MetaMask or a hardware wallet if you haven't done that already, as the snapshot might happen sooner than you expect. Also, make sure your launch strategy is on point if you have one, and if you don't, just don't waste more time and make one, because it will be actually crucial for your profit and loss approaching this event. If you believe in Hex, you think it's here to stay, and more importantly, Hex on the PulseChain side will also be successful, now might be the best time to buy it, as you'll receive a copy on PulseChain when the snapshot takes place. This way, you kinda buy 2 tokens for the price of 1, and they both gonna be within the buying range and not the selling range. I'm personally very curious to see what's gonna happen to the original Hex after PulseChain. As you know, one of the main reasons PulseChain was started was the absurd amount of fees Hex takers have to pay on Ethereum. People speculate with the numbers, and they like to say that not 10% of the circulating supply is staked, as the data clearly shows, but actually almost 70% of the supply is staked because the rest is held by the origin address, and the origin address never sells and this and that. Well, I have a detailed video about the Hex origin address that you can go and check it out if you want to find out why I disagree with all this. But if we say that theoretically this is true, and the supply that is staked is actually much higher than 10%, so what is going to happen with all this liquidity when PulseChain launch? Do you think these people will choose to stay on the Ethereum side and pay these ridiculous fees, or move over to PulseChain and pay literally pennies, considering that the fees might be much lower now on Ethereum, but in the bull run they will go insane again? And not just in terms of staking, let's talk about the average investor. Do you think the original Hex has a chance to do another 10,000x? Yeah, maybe, who knows, but is it gonna be as easy as the first 10,000x? Well, definitely not that easy, and especially since we have 2 Hexes now, and the one will not be dependent on Ethereum, but completely within the founder's ecosystem. So this definitely sounds more bullish to me, and basically Hex is starting all over again. So 10,000x or 5,000 10,000 or even 1,000 if we substantially lower our expectations are definitely on the table. I guess many people see this as an opportunity and will take advantage of it. Now, I don't want to say that the original hex is dying and all that. In fact, I said that might be a good idea to buy it now before the snapshot, as you basically bet on 2 horses for the price of 1. And even though it might seem more likely that hex on the PulseChain side has more potential, I don't recommend you to be overdetermined and put all your eggs in one basket. The market is full of human emotions and we try to navigate it as best as we can with the data. In support of my p-hex theory, I wanna quickly mention that Richard Hart himself also said once that the best performer on PulseChain might be the one that has the most liquidity backing it up. The most liquid token on the testnet currently is PLS, but the data on the testnet is not something we should follow blindly and assume that this is pretty much how it's going to look on the mainnet. For instance, we have this thing called PLS Faucet, where you can claim free testnet tokens that you can play around with. You can claim as much as you want, and people have been suggested many times by Richard Hart and many other influencers to go to the testnet and try as many things as they can and practice for the mainnet. I don't think we will see nearly the same amount of actions done on the mainnet, as people will operate with their real money and not with test tokens. We know that the highest amount sacrificed for PulseX comes from hex, and it's actually half of the total amount sacrificed. We don't have the numbers for PulseChain, but I think we can assume that the numbers won't be much different. Also, the total value locked for hex is $2 billion, and that is more than the sacrificed value for PulseChain and PulseX combined together. By the way, when the hex price was around 10 cents, the total value locked was worth $6 billion. So that's a lot of money that is behind hex, and it's very hard to predict what the market will evaluate more, but all in all, I do not recommend you to underestimate hex on the PulseChain side. I talked many times about that, and also, if you haven't watched my launch preparation video already, I highly recommend you to go and watch it very carefully, because the information that I provide there can be game changing for you, and you don't want to approach this launch without a clear step-by-step plan. By the way, I made a video a couple of days ago about hex, and I showed this section on the website again and said that there's probably a glitch on that particular day because it's showing 8 million holders, and the day before were around 470,000. However, it's been a week now, but the holders remain over 8 million. If anyone is able to get in touch with Richard Hart and let him know about this so he can fix it, will be very helpful. I also want to mention that nothing in this video is financial advice, and apart from this, it will be very much appreciated if you gave the like button a gentle tap to support my channel, because these videos take a lot of time and effort to be done, and that's all I'm asking for. If you also don't want to miss my future videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel as well, because there's a lot more to come. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.